Got
There
it.
we go.
Hello and thank you. Welcome to the class June board meeting. My name is John Slade. I'm your co-president. Scott Olson is also your co-president. We're happy to call us all together here. Just super briefly, the big thing that I had, well, anybody else need to say anything after our welcome? Scott, do you want to do any official welcoming there?
I don't think so, John. Do we have anything that needs to get voted on today later? Because then the question would be, do we have a quorum to do that?
Okay.
And if it's anything financial, we may not because of Kate.
Let me
Thanks,
take a look.
thanks, Kate.
Is Michelle coming today?
I thought she was. I don't think so.
I
Anything
think
big.
so. Tracy's a liaison and Julie is a liaison as well, right? So when I look at our board member and contact list, oh, and so is Diane. We have enough board members.
We do.
We do.
Now that I'm counting here, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
8. Yeah, we have either 8 or 9. So with the 6 of us, we are more than enough. Since I kind of do more of the lunch and learns and Scott does kind of more of the networking, our April 13th lunch and learn occurred. Was that Julia's?
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was the second that we've had. There were a number of folks. It actually ran a little shorter. It was not overtime. Julia spoke quite a bit about all of the various programs, or many of the programs that she's got that have to do with age and aging initiatives. Given her job, that's almost everything. There were some super strong points, like her discussion of diversity and race and how she just really frames those kind of discussions. And then also on the it was not a and she intentionally didn't use a PowerPoint. So there was also a feeling that it kind of went A, B, Z, D, R, green. So a little hop here and there ish, but some really stellar moments as she was hopping from one topic to another. We have the upcoming lunch and learn that we're going to be talking about in the agenda. And then the final one is Lynn is signed up to do the age friendly.
It's a dementia friendly.
Dementia friendly. Yep.
Yep. And I'm waiting for, I did want to have a brief discussion about that today so that I can start my work on. I just sort of want context. Wanted us as a board to think about, there's many ways we can go with this. So I just wanted to hone in on a way that we think is best for where we're at in context to the rest of our organization, I guess, best way to say it. And in context of what we've been experiencing with these events. So I could use a little input. So if we could take 5 or 10 minutes when we're talking, wherever it fits.
So in our new business, there's a kind of a discussion of hybrid meetings that leads to the August 17th lunch and learn. So we'll just we'll talk hybrid, we'll talk your lunch and learn, then we'll talk the August 17th lunch and learn. So, and Lynn. All right. So that's kind of my end of the world co-president check-in. Scott, I got you down for taxes and the networking.
Sure. The taxes have been completed. They have been filed. We met the deadline, yay. And with the help from Cindy, it was very, very easy to do. What Cindy has done, and I've provided this for Kate, and I think Kate has added it into our Google Drive, is a step-by-step for any subsequent president coming in to know exactly what to do. And it's a very easy form, but Cindy did a great job of just kind of having those details. So now it's been put into a format that is not just sitting on somebody's computer. It's in the class drive, which I think is a big thing. And we're slowly kind of getting these kind of documents of when things need to be done. We're getting them added into the Google Drive, right, Kate?
Yes, and those
Yeah.
are, there's a taxes folder under treasurer listed under the Google Drive. So even if it's not immediately obvious where something is, it is logically placed in an area that should be easy to follow and find.
Sure. Good, good. So that's it about taxes. There's, we could talk about it, but it's pretty boring. There's, it's nothing that we owed, so we're good to go on that. Regarding the July networking topic, and that is July 13th. We do not have a 10-minute speaker for that. So if somebody knows of anyone who would be interested regarding the topic, again, I think just so we have clarity on that, it is where the networking meeting would begin. Introductions would be made for what the meeting is all about. It then would get handed over to our speaker, who for their 10 minutes would talk roughly, what did we say, John? 5, 6, 7, or something like that, on a more of a generic topic about their topic. And then the last 2 or 3 could be specifically about what they may do on a day-to-day basis, or more specific news regarding the company they're involved with. So it's not a full 10-minute advertisement for what they do, but it's coming up with some information that would be good for the first 5 minutes that would be kind of generic in nature about their topic. Hi, Christine.
Sorry, I'm late there.
Hello.
We're happy to have you.
Okay, so sorry.
Thank you.
actually, good timing for Chris, because Chris, since we don't have anyone speaking at the upcoming July networking meeting, that might be a good chance to talk about Elder Voice and just the legislation piece as well. Because it's not specifically just, what Elder Voice is doing, but it's something that affects the greater community.
We
that
could
you can-
all use the education, and I picked that up on the Ramsey County presentation. People wanted to know what they could do more in their professional role for advocacy and
Well, urge them to do their work is what we need to do.
right. I mean, these are a lot of frontline people that are like, well, this
Sure.
is, this is bigger than us, but how do we still have a voice? Because we are at the front. We get it. Yeah.
So
Okay,
given
yeah.
that we're in the kind of co-president reports, and Scott's doing networking, and we don't have that July 13th networking, and you show up, Chris.
Yay, serendipity, synergy.
This is why you are currently, welcome to the meeting. You are now getting actively recruited for a role.
Otherwise
And
I'd be in big trouble, huh?
and also it was this all came back, and I hadn't made it. The woman who talked about forest burials was like, she talked very much about her company, and it's like, we want you to be able to talk about your program and your piece for half of your time or less. And we want you to educate us about green burial options. So that was like, given what we had experienced, we wanted to see a little bit more of that. So what we're asking is you to give to speak for 10 minutes on the morning of the 13th, and 5 of that to be general, like when you look at legislative work in elder areas that you worked on and other people worked on, kind of little report on that, and then what exactly you guys were doing and where it's at for you.
Okay.
And then
Okay,
even a call to action, like educate us on the larger, I think, John, obviously this is your day job, but the rest of us who don't know always,
Mhm.
we're gonna have people on the call who would benefit from even having like a nice, here's next steps kind of thing. If you want to engage in it and move into that space, have a voice. If you want to have that voice, here's how you do it.
Mhm.
got it. Okay, and who knows, maybe they'll have had a special session by then?
Oh,
Is it possible?
who knows?
I don't know.
Let's send that energy out into the, in all of our neighborhoods right now.
Yeah, yeah. But
Well-
Roger Chamberlain, for instance, is right up there in the area of our service. And he is a player on the Senate side, so there's
Yeah.
definitely some call to action that could be made there.
So Christine, while we're talking about this, you want to look at your calendar, make certain that July 13th from
Yep, I
8:30 to
just-
10.
I just did. What time does it start?
Well, the whole networking goes from 8:30 a.m. to 10. But once we get things started and get a recording going and welcome everybody, you would be the first one on. So somewhere in that 8:35, 8:40 area would be where you would be getting your 10 minutes.
Excellent.
I'm on. You got me.
Good, good, good.
Wonderful. That'll be a great topic that day. And timing is well needed for that, I
Very
think.
much.
It
Agreed.
Yeah.
is.
Good.
And Chris, I did an additional plug. I forwarded the email for the webinar to Lynn here as
Oh,
well.
you know,
Yeah,
all right.
I'm gonna share it with, I'm heavily connected now to the Faith Community Nurse Network. So there's over 100 nurses on that network.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome.
I'll
Thank you.
get that to her today.
Awesome. You know, would it be okay if I also just talk about the elections and what people can do during this election cycle? Or would you rather me not? Yep.
As long as you're not suggesting that they endorse a specific candidate,
Nope, 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 nope. I'm not. Nope.
but if you, I mean, I think it's great to tell them, look for this kind of language in candidates, you know, it's like, point out the type, but don't specifically
Yeah.
hit one.
No,
So-
I won't go party preferences or anything like that.
Yeah, but what do you, the view, I think what's really helpful for us, I will speak for myself, is how you look at it as an elder advocate. What language, what particular pieces, because it's hard to decode and you are doing that. So we might as well take advantage of that. Like what draws you in, what brings us, so we can relate to it, to our, where we spend our time and represent the people we serve.
Okay, awesome.
Chris, I would highly recommend for this also that not only do you introduce yourself as with elder care, but as a class board member who is helping us perpetuate advocacy, and that's why you'll be speaking that day. So I think that lends some great credibility to class on that morning.
You can count on it.
Well, you might get some more folks in your court because it's an energy that's gonna bring, it's so timely. It's.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah,
But
good
I
job,
can.
Kate.
Connecting people. I may not have a wide network, but when I find something, I'm gonna throw a dart at it and see if it lands.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Anything else on
regarding,
networking?
oh, go ahead, John.
To you, sir.
I was just gonna say I don't think we can talk too much deeper on networking meetings beyond kind of the one that's ahead of us, because we haven't had anybody step up yet for other meetings, but every time we have a board meeting or a networking meeting, we will talk about that. So if anyone knows of a great topic that we want to be surrounding ourselves with, that would be timely for September 14th and then November 9th, that'd be great to take a look at that.
Good.
A while back, there was a conversation in one of my breakout groups about the real estate organization and having some cross conversations about planning that way. And some interest, I believe it was Dawn, and I don't remember who else it was. But that might be someone to circle back with, especially as, we've kind of come out of constant Zoom meetings and they're more of a hybrid version. It may be more timely to reach out and see if that's of interest to her. And then one thing I just wanted to know as secretary / communications person, I was wondering if it would make sense for us to create a free MailChimp or something emailer, because Scott, last year when it was just you and me, I think we did a series of emails that we just auto set to go out. And that has kind of fallen off the radar in trying to build up our board. And I'm just wondering if communications, like reminders going out and having templates that are preset, not only for board meetings, but Katie, if that would be helpful. I don't know how you've done it in the past, but if that should be something that we also build in as an automation piece to make it easier on the board.
Well, and I think under the agenda for continuing tasks that I see,
Mhm.
you know, part of that conversation can really come into play here because we've got organizing for networking meetings, lunch and learns to maybe help John, anything that we've got for educational planning development that would need or necessitate an email send. I think that will be a good discussion. Hi, Julia.
Hi, I sent you a note. You can ignore it.
I already responded.
I
I
couldn't,
already responded and said,
Are you
sounds
guys
good.
passing notes during the meeting?
I
Because
couldn't
we're
find the
having
link
a
for the
lack of
meeting.
focus here. Yeah.
Oh, did you send me another one then?
No, I couldn't find the
Yes or
link.
no.
What,
Yep,
Katie?
got it.
So an automated MailChimp that includes the link to the meeting will be helpful. Yep.
Yep.
And I have done what I hate, which is here's an enclosed document that has the Zoom link for your meeting. So go open that enclosed document to get the Zoom link.
That's okay as long as someone directs me to the Zoom link. I don't
There
care
we
where
go.
it is. I just need to have the direction in the
Yep, so I
email.
didn't use it this time, but I did double check. There is a Zoom link through the website, right, to the board meetings? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's what I thought. I
Okay.
did just for future reference, Julia, so you don't,
Okay,
if all else fails, go to the website and there is a lot. It's a live, I'm assuming it's
Awesome.
live. Yeah.
great. Thank you.
So
Mhm.
I'm gonna just push us through our lovely agenda. We have a board member who's also a contractor, Kate. We have it as ongoing in each meeting to state that this is a relationship that we are aware that there are boundaries. I wanted to just once again say this is a relationship, Kate. Also, on the being new to the executive committee, I believe that Kate and Scott and other folks who've been on there have developed a really good way of operationalizing that awareness. And so I think that we have a really good awareness of that boundary and it's well maintained.
And I think,
So-
John, since we're recording this and who knows who else may listen to it, we'll just state for the record, the relationship is based on a paid contractor status versus a board member. So we want to make certain that anything financially voted on, Kate will abstain from that vote because of her contractor status in getting paid.
Good, check. We have a list of continuing tasks that we've kind of been looking at. We've been massaging this kind of down and making things happen. Scott is, as we talked about, big on organizing the networking meetings, getting out regular email invitations and updates, I think is isn't that just kind of what you said, Kate? Can we automatize and systematize that? Yep. We have a grant writing committee that got formed, which is Christine and me and Scott and Diane. We have not written grants of late, but that is in there. Allie, good to have you back. The lunch and learns we have not done really. I sent, hey, Katie, can you send out a thing? And Katie sent out a thing on the last lunch and learn, and then it was Julia. So we have a bunch of discussion about this upcoming one, but in terms of continuing tasks, I feel pretty good on that. Educational planning development. And so this was listed as a continuing task, bringing ideas to the board for topics, speakers, and forums for presentation. Is there more on what we need to do in that direction? And also that's more than figuring out who does our networking and our lunch and learns. Anyone?
So John, would this, or could this include any future event that we wish to be bringing together, whether it's 4 events a year or 1 event a year, whatever that might be? That kind of comes into that statement there, right? The educational planning development. Would that include that, you think?
Well, I'm looking at Lynn Ammon. It seems that it was advocacy and education were pieces that pre-COVID class was going to carry forward. And in some ways they were merged, in some ways they weren't. So is this referring kind of back to we do education work piece from classes past, recent past?
Right, in this first year, we really just adopted what had been on our previous priority list. We just plugged those 4 in as they existed, and we didn't do it. What didn't happen, and I think would be needed going forward here now that we're almost, well, we are halfway through the year, is to start to look at next year, because we fast and furious just adopted the 4 from, 2 years ago and didn't think about what that meant for any building. And I think when we originally put the education committee, or the work of the education committee, was whatever we do, it builds on it. So we think about how does this build on itself? And I wouldn't say, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott and John, at the beginning of this year, I don't know that was it was just, let's just get them going. So more timely, more response, and that may be the new way we're in. It's not about, building out a 2 or 3 year plan, but it does make for easier planning and for a committee when you're not, reinventing the wheel every year on how you're sort of already naturally doing some building. The other thing that wasn't happening was we weren't doing these networking / informational. So I think we just have to build within what the new capacity is. So I mean, that's my, 5-second historical perspective.
Okay.
And we want to move it into current days. So I wouldn't say that we have to be where we were or move in. We can do this however we want to. And I think there's just sort of that, I think this would be the time to start thinking about, do you need a group of people? Because really all I did, even at the beginning of the year, I said, yep, I was up for dementia 2 years ago, put me down. I mean, there was no dialogue around that. Sort of where now as we get closer, I would like to be more related to our current need base, our current audience. So, and responsive that way. So I guess we don't even have like an education committee. So that's not really, so I don't know how realistic it is to
For the
think that
sake
we.
of our new board members here, Lynn, I think as we talk about what would be considered an educational planning development,
Mhm,
prior to COVID, that was the 4 events that we had scheduled for
Exactly.
that calendar
Yeah.
year, where they were live events. So
mhm.
this is not something that's separate from what those events are. And that
We had-
was
Sorry.
in April, we were going to have
Yeah.
an age-friendly
Mhm.
community. In the second quarter, we were going to have affordable housing. Third quarter was transportation, and fourth
Mhm.
quarter was dementia-friendly, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken.
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying is for this year, for 2022, it really,
Right.
we just adopted what was before. And there was intentionality that went into those, picking
Right.
those. So if we're gonna now just the following 2023, where does that go? Do we build from these 4 topics or do we shift it? That's the conference. But if we had a committee, they would be able to put that into some space of thought.
Julia, did you have a comment on that one too?
Yeah, I just want to remind us, because I had forgotten, that at some point we had talked about doing one of the mini conferences that we've done in some other areas. That's a pretty heavy lift.
Mhm.
But it makes sense to me that class would want to do that, but I would not come into White Bear Lake and say, I'm going to do this.
Right.
If you guys think it's feasible, you want to do it, that's great. If not, that's fine too.
Okay.
I think a lot of these threads, we're talking about hybrid meetings, and transitioning into what is going to happen next.
Mhm.
And so this, I think, is okay, here's a piece. How are we intentional about the topics that we cover and how we cover them?
Yeah.
I think for that.
And one thing I want to throw out
Because of 2 of the board members that we have here, Katie and Ally, being that you are at city level, one of the things that we may have not been able to do as well during the course of the pandemic is connecting to the seniors in the community about classes efforts. And so if there is a way to tie into the senior programs that exist in your cities to host some sort of class event that is like, if there's a network around what the work that you do in multiple cities in the Northeast Metro, what have you, is that something that we could potentially pursue as a hybrid model as well, just to be both towards our senior service professionals as well as educating the community, as a piece to consider? Don't know, but I just thought I'd throw it out there and see if it either tastes sweet or sour on your tongue.
Well, I think some of the conversations that we've had with class, especially over the last year or so, has been like, is our focus on community members or service providers? And I think it's hard to do both at once.
Mhm.
I know I've attended, I can't remember what it's called. Lynn has probably been there. There's like a senior resource fair.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
In White Bear. That's like a great community members come in, or
Mhm. Expo, yeah.
children of
Mhm.
seniors or whatever come in and kind of learn about the providers, and that like a lot of class network members might participate in something like that. But that event is for the community versus being for service providers. So I think it's hard to do both of those things.
I completely agree. It has been where the organization has been, I don't want to say in conflict, but it's been a constant, because we all serve people in our individual lanes of an organization that we're connected to. But as a greater whole, early in the establishment of the nonprofit, there was a lot of, we're going to do more for the community. And it was recognized that that works, but it's us just all doing our job. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't a space. So what we were saying where the gaps were, how do we align as professionals? So that's how we sit uniquely. It doesn't mean that what we do couldn't be available to seniors, but if it's just, we're going to offer one more opportunity to educate, that felt a little bit like, and that, we had some really robust conversations. We had a retreat. when we put together our mission and sort of realigned with the bringing ourselves together as professionals in development and advocates for the people we serve, less about trying to do the direct service piece. So I hear what you're saying, Kate, and if there was a place for it, I think we all try to be out in community as much as we can, but
It would be a stretch, and I think
That was more of the clarification because it had been a conversation pre-COVID. So knowing that we're more in the senior service professional lane helps me. But from a city standpoint,
yeah, I hear you. There's just been there's a need for both. Don't get us wrong. Clearly all of us can agree that, but it feels like at this time, the biggest gap is opportunities for us to align each other so that we can serve the people, the seniors better. So we know about each other's programming, we keep informed, we connect, and even at an advocacy level, have a bigger voice. And so I think that that's a draw for people, uniquely, different than let's just see how we can serve more seniors kind of thing. So, if others feel I'd be curious if people are feeling, we're kind of moving out. We're not moving out of COVID, but we're in a different time now. So for the last 2 years, the fact that we've had networking has been such a draw. To be here and do that really well feels like the capacity we have right now.
Yeah, I think that the outward advocacy pieces and some of the more community pieces, like I was looking at our community or affordable housing and transportation kind of goals that, and we have and bring seniors to the decision-making tables for those goals. And so that's kind of community based and doing that. But the acknowledgement is that the core of our organizing is professionals organizing with professionals. But yeah, so.
Well, actually, John, thank you for saying that, because I knew there was a niche where, think of how we're all aligned. Like I have a advisory committee and, you get at that city council. There is, so the more we can make sure there's voices of our elders in our representative communities in those places, and then know that there's a tie-in, right, to here's what the professional perspective, because honestly, half the time I think that there's a big gap where people don't really know what the culture of the senior services is. So the more our voices are in that space, or we bring a senior in, the White Bear Senior Center has an advisory. So we make sure that those, New Tracks has an advisory, that there's a representative of the people we actually serve. And I think that that's super important to elevate how that fits together, because that oftentimes doesn't get, you're right, if the people we serve aren't on those boards and committees and action teams, then we're sort of misrepresenting where we need to be and having a cognitive awareness of that. We've even said that about our own board, right? To make sure that we've got people we serve sort of in that space.
So this is a good conversation. It wasn't on our agenda necessarily. Is there anything that people want to bring this one to a close and then move on? I think it's a great discussion about where we're going and what we're doing. And it's us trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's great clarity.
So representing class at other groups is something on there. Ramsey County age-friendly meetings and MICA meetings. The last person I had regularly showing to the MICA meeting had her mother die. And so I haven't seen her in a while. Julia, do you have somebody who's showing up?
Just showing up for
Ramsey County age-friendly meetings.
From class.
from
Yeah.
class? No, not at the moment.
Just every so often.
Scott,
Julia,
yeah, and
I
I've
can-
tried to hop on. I was on the last call. That was awesome.
Okay, good. Yeah, we've been doing some stuff around, we've had 25 people on the only meeting, which is the only team so far, and that's kind of unmanageable to make decisions.
Mhm.
And so we've been sort of figuring out with the team levels of engagement and who belongs in what level of engagement so that we can, people can figure out what their commitment level could be.
Do you have an ARP staff person that is now guiding that process?
Guiding what process?
Any of the age-friendly Ramsey County work?
No.
I
it's
thought you
for-
guys were contracting with ARP for a little
No.
bit of.
No, so the process through ARP is free, which is
Okay,
one of the reasons we were looking at it. as opposed
nice.
to Blue zones, which are not free. But blue zones also focus on length of life, and that's not necessarily what we're looking at. But the AARP network, we've had some folks express, well, we're using their process.
Yes, okay.
Joining their network would mean having some access to other folks and some other tools. But several people in the group, a couple people in the group, have expressed some concerns about AARP and that they don't show up as much as folks would like to see them show up in BIPOC communities. They don't
Mhm.
show up in BIPOC communities except for a piece.
Mhm.
And that their money comes from a for-profit organization, which is their insurance companies. And so we are rethinking that.
Okay,
And if I had to guess, I'm going to say the team will not join the AARP network. But even if we did, that would still, it's a community-based process. So we're
Mhm.
partners in it, but it's not ours, it's not AARP's, it is whatever the community in partnership with would want.
okay.
Scott?
Julia, just in regards to ARP, and I'm sorry if I missed the first part there. Is Elise Ruiz on your radar at all? Because she's no longer at ARP.
Oh my God, I didn't
I
know.
know.
So that's, no, obviously not, because I didn't know she was.
I was
not at
waiting for
ARP
somebody to
anymore.
say that because I thought maybe you didn't know. I know.
No, I didn't
No,
know.
tell us.
What do
well-
you know, Scott?
Well, the only thing I know is that as we have tried to reach out over the course of, well, all year, she's on
She's on our
here,
board here, yeah.
and she has not responded to any phone call, any email, anything. And it was just last week where finally we continued to send something out. Katie had sent out about our monthly newsletter and it included all the board members. And the email bounced back just stating that as of May 13th, she was no longer with ARP. And that's the first that we had heard. So
Yeah, and on her LinkedIn account, it does say she ended her job there in May, so she's, it doesn't say where she went.
Yeah,
Okay.
interesting.
So I put a yellow highlight on her name under our board. She is welcome to be on our board should she choose to, whether she's with ARP or not, but I don't think.
Well,
I
it will
check out the
depend actually
website.
on where she is. I hear what you're saying, but if she doesn't work for an organization that is serving seniors, you know what I mean, like we'd
Yeah.
have to.
If
Yeah,
she's gone
she's
off
not
to
a community
Hollywood,
member.
she's not gonna have interest to be with us.
No, she's going off to some political thing because that's her thing.
Well, I was
Um,
wondering, I'm trying to figure it out, you guys. I'm on Facebook. She's still in the world. Yeah.
But the other thing I want to say about that is, as far as I know, she was the only staff person who is not white.
Yeah,
That's a
that's-
grave concern,
That
or
is.
that changes the county's perspective, or
Yeah.
sort of changes people's view and reinforces exactly what those two
Right.
community members, which were
Well, it
saying.
just doesn't represent the state of Minnesota. I mean, and that's, or the county. Let's go
Right.
to the county. Yeah.
Right.
So
Got it.
quick question from a website.
Website perspective, are we keeping Elise on the board at this point? On our website, on the class website?
I would entertain a motion if people want to do that. We would have to take an official, this is a vote.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry.
I would think it would, we would have to take it off until we have her permission to keep it on because she's left the organization.
Well, for sure, she's not part of ARP, so we know that can be removed.
Right.
If she's not given us any future contact information, I think we can assume there wasn't a plan to continue being involved with us. I guess we don't. If we don't have any way to contact her, it feels a little bit like we were actually hoping, Julia, you could shed some light on this and give us some additional
I do have,
intel.
I do have a phone number that is not connected to ARP, so
Right.
I can certainly shoot her a note. on
You
a-
don't need to do our work. I was just thinking if you knew something we didn't, then we would build
No,
from
it
that.
would, now that I know she's gone, I would just personally like to know how
Yeah.
she's doing and what's going on.
That's right.
Good, good.
And
Okay.
Julia, I had her cell phone and probably called 5 times, no response at all. So I don't know if she still has that same number or not.
Compare notes.
Are you able to pull up the name? Oh, Lord. Never mind. I don't have a phone number because I lost access to my Gmail account,
Oh.
and apparently a
Ah.
number of contacts in my phone were listed to my Gmail account,
Yeah.
and it
No.
wiped out half of my contacts.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I don't have a personal number for her anymore.
Hmm.
All right.
Hey, John, while we're still on the continuing tasks, can I be selfish and
Sure.
reach out to either Katie or Ally to see if they want to fight over who wants to be working with John on Lunch and Learns and maybe the other work with me on networking? Does that make sense, John?
If you guys are willing, it's just hey, can somebody make a nice little email reminder to send out? Has been the ask so far. That's my understanding. Scott, is that?
Yeah, that, and for me with networking, I'd love to chat with somebody other than my own brain and Kate's brain as to, so what breakout session questions do we want to do? What kind of special anything do we want to do in these networking meetings? Because they really have become a vehicle by which we've replaced some of our different events, and we're kind of saying, how can we make these continue to be vibrant?
Mhm.
So
Have we asked folks to come to the meetings?
all the time.
Okay.
We have
Have they expressed some specific things they would like to talk about or see?
we really haven't gotten any responses, I don't believe.
So,
Kate.
but people like what you have been asking. So I guess, I
Yeah,
mean, do
they
we need,
do.
maybe we don't need to reinvent it. If people like it, why, I mean, they're engaging. I've had
Yeah.
wonderful conversations every time.
Right, but there comes a point in time where the same questions each time. How you doing in COVID? Anything changing on your job with COVID? There comes a point where, yeah, maybe if you miss a meeting or two and somebody else comes to a meeting they weren't at before, then it's okay. But as you get on the third round of these networking breakout questions, I think it's time that we can get even a little deeper and just even creative as to how the meeting flows.
And I can
So-
help you with some of that. I can help you with some of that.
That'd be great, Ally. Thank you.
And as far as the email reminders, Ally, I could give you a very quick tutorial. I did a template that we can use for the monthly newsletter that would be really easy, just as a networking email reminder too, with the header and stuff on it.
Perfect. That would be great.
Awesome. I have changed our continuing tasks to represent what just happened.
Excellent.
Um,
Kate, will Ally need access to database and such?
I put that stuff on the not executive board email. So
Okay,
I think
Yeah.
Ally is already,
she'll have access in, yeah.
Can somebody resend that to me? It was all in my old email stuff that I no longer have.
yeah, I can send it
Okay.
over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Excellent. So 2:20, we are still in our early reports. Treasurer Michelle Hubbard is not here.
Yeah, that's why I turned away to send off an email to Michelle saying, Michelle, are you going to join us? You're up next, but I haven't heard back, so.
Okay,
I think she's on vacation today. And so she was sending over the information, but today's a vacation day for her from the office.
okay. Does anybody want to talk about the Stripe? Does anybody not know what happened with Stripe? Raise your hand.
No, I've been out of it. I went on vacation.
All right.
I don't know.
That's my
what's going on.
excuse anyway. Went on vacation to the scene behind me, by the way.
Nice. Is
Okay.
Can you imagine
Beautiful.
why it'd be hard to come back?
that Arizona?
No, that's Boulder.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Oh,
So what happened with
Yeah.
Stripe, Scott?
Well, and Kate, I'll have you interject as well, but as we had gotten things set up at US Bank with myself being able to be a co-signer for any checks or financial, as you know, in the event that either a treasurer or a president got hit by a bus, we would at least have a second person that would be able to continue with financial stuff. We got there, got all the paperwork filled out. They went through their processing piece. Within the next week, I was contacted saying, oh, what we had you sign wasn't correct. We need you to come back. I did. I came back to do that. And in the meantime, Kate was given access to the account, the banking account, but none of the Stripe transactions were showing up in our bank account. And Stripe is the vehicle that takes care of all of our membership registrations. And so anything that was going on with our membership drive, none of the financial piece was coming to our banking account.
Oh, dear.
Mhm.
Do we
Kate,
know where it
anything-
went? It was just
Well,
going into the
it's-
ether, or it went to somewhere specifically?
I think we have since found out that we've got, you know, it's there, it's findable, but I don't know if it has not been able to be a reportable thing for Michelle. Kate, what do you know?
What I know is we constantly receive emails from Stripe telling us that we need to reinstate our bank account, and that has not, so the bank account that Stripe had on file was the one that US Bank closed. So the funds are still sitting in Stripe, and they say, we have money for you, you just need to give us some banking information. But because of the mix-up that happened at the US Bank level, Michelle has not been able to go in. Now that Michelle has the information, it's been so long since she's logged into Stripe that she actually needs a refresher course on how to get back into it. So it was one of those, we did training at the beginning of the year. It is now June. And clearly, if you haven't logged in between then and now, your memory is just going to be so happy with you for trying to recall details. So the next step after we get all the banking stuff squared away will be me assisting Michelle in getting logged back into Stripe to reconnect everything. That's my understanding.
So we didn't have access to some of our money. We think that we're almost there now. Are we there now?
We must be now because she just sent me a check for something that she tried paying me for at the beginning of the year, and and I got a rejection notice from my bank. So she did just send me that last week.
Okay.
So the account must be up and working again, or she wouldn't have sent it to me again because it would be rejected again. So I
Yeah,
think we're in the right direction.
Our account has been working, our US Bank account has been working, but getting the funds from Stripe into that account has been the issue.
Well, it was also an additional, because I tried to deposit one of the class checks and it came back denied. So
Right.
it was also part of that, whatever the checking
Yes.
system. Yeah.
But how long ago was that, Lynn?
Probably 2-3 months ago. And then
Yeah,
she
yeah.
just now gave me another check. So
Right.
Here,
I
here.
think our bank account has been fluid and up and running for her to cut checks within the last 3 weeks at least, right? Kate, as you've gotten
Good.
paid?
Yes, I did receive checks, so the bank account is running. The Stripe account is
Is
still on
not.
hold, yes. But we still have money, that's classes money, it will get into our hands eventually. The next step will be us logging in.
Do we
to-
know if there's a problem, like if people are trying to join as a new member? Is that an issue? Like, is money going somewhere?
Money
We
will
just
still
don't-
go into Stripe,
Okay.
which is how the payments are processed. We are not getting paid out to our bank account, so
Are we
it's like,
still getting notification when we get a new member though?
we have not had any new members since this has occurred.
We would get a notification if they, because that's different than that registration for membership. We would still be getting that for processing, getting them
That's good.
uploaded or brought along.
I was just wondering if it impacted that piece. So
But
if
it
you're,
just didn't, it wouldn't handle the financial piece, yeah.
Members would have no idea that there was anything wrong because their
Yeah.
payments would get processed accordingly. We're just not getting that money yet as class.
But it's a good thing our expenses are pretty low right now, so.
Mhm.
So in the absence of having more financial pieces, and so now everybody knows that Stripe has been a hassle. Kate, do you have a secretarial report?
Secretarial report is, we have all of our most recent meetings uploaded and saved. So if anyone has missed board meeting, networking meeting, lunch and learns, all of those are available and on our websites, including meeting minutes. So if you need to go back and see any of those are available to you. And if there are any additional pieces that I'm not thinking of, please let me know and I can add it to my agenda of things to do.
The only thing I'd bring up is maybe you already know this because I don't think you were on the call, the networking meeting. Was it the networking meeting, Scott, where some of us were having trouble logging in? I ended up going like somewhere on the website to get was that when Julia was presenting? I'm trying to remember. I think it was that presentation.
There were 2 or 3 people that sent an email out after the fact that they couldn't get on, but yet we had 15 people that were on the call, so.
Right. So that's what's trying to make me, just think, did we decode if there was something? Because I was one of those people that I went everywhere possible. I used the link.
How did you get on then?
I ended up going to one of your old networking meeting emails from a quarter ago and hopping on that way. I didn't even use the one that had been sent out for the current one. So I
Interesting.
thought that isn't going to be available. Everyone's not going to do that. So I just thought if you could peek at maybe what that might have, it was more than just me, because like you said, Scott, a couple people just weren't able to, so we don't even know who else, maybe they didn't even email Scott and tell
They
him.
did, and I've responded back to them, so.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was the one who sent out that last email, so I couldn't verify, but if you wanted me to look, I can, which is
Yeah,
also
did
why.
you get the email though? For you to even see what came, it was valid for some people, but not for others. So that's where it's getting a little.
Here's what happened that last networking meeting, as Kate was talking earlier. There wasn't a Monday morning or Tuesday morning email that was sent out as a reminder. Everybody was utilizing their original invite that they added to their calendar.
Yeah. So that was probably it. Okay.
All right. So 2:28, we've got what, 30 minutes? And all of our new business. So if I'm gonna trip down the agenda here. What I found on last month's agenda was we should set up a separate budget meeting for 22. And we haven't. We have also been talking about hybrid meetings, what we want to look at for 2023, and what we're going to do for our next lunch and learn. And the budget discussion was kind of, what do we do if, as we as an organization are shifting past 4 simple lunch and learns and 6 Zooming networking meetings? I think that we haven't figured that out, but we're going to start to really soon. So I feel fine putting this piece of old business on to the next month's or next meeting's agenda as well. Any thoughts on that?
I think
Kate,
the next, oh, go ahead.
You go, Scott.
I think if we hold that as a primary piece of that meeting, we can be really productive with that. I think this was a good catch up because Ally was able to join us and Chris was able to join us in getting both of them caught up with just kind of class functions by getting a little bit deeper was good. Now this to me is the thrust of our board from here to the end of the year and liaison from here to the end of the year. So we can spend more time next meeting with maybe a deeper discussion on budget.
Okay. I'm going to say all of our wonderful side conversations count for board member check-ins. Although if anybody does have anything, you know, new babies, we've got that. Anybody who's got something burning to
John?
share? Yes,
Uh,
Christine.
I just went on LinkedIn to check to see Elise, and she is there. And it does note that she ended ARP. It doesn't note any new position.
Okay,
So I've sent her a message saying I'd like to catch up with her and see what's what.
good.
If you do connect, just, you know, she's still in the industry, ask her if she still would wish to be on the board. We'd
If
love
she-
to have her.
It looks like she's in the advocacy, the government of grassroots part of it, whether she'll stay with the senior. But what I'm thinking is if she's got time in the interim and something that I could actually help her, I could engage her on some elder voice work. And though we can't pay worth crap, you know, to put it bluntly, it still would fill a gap for her and be actually contributing for us as well. So
Mhm.
that's where my little brain always goes, you know.
Good idea.
Any way you can do so. Well, and so speaking of any way we can do so, are we ready to move to a new way that's kind of an old way? It's called face-to-face meetings, hybrid meetings, in person and online. We talked about in our networking discussion, there were maybe 10 people left for the breakouts, but that was a discussion that we had and said, okay, we've got, say, the September 14th networking. What would you guys feel about that being face-to-face or hybrid? What I recall from both groups was, yeah, I would consider that. We haven't talked about that as a board as a whole since that point in time. And in addition to September 14th networking being something we raised in May 11th, we're now looking at the August 17th lunch and learn and thinking about perhaps a hybrid meeting at the Nutrex garage. So there are two pieces. We got 20 minutes and two pieces. And then I'd like us to just show everybody the jot form so that we can like say, oh, this is how we do it and get our stuff going in the network piece as well. But what do folks think about hybrid meetings in the September and August timeline? Or rather having any face-to-face, because we already do the Zoom part. So the Zoom part's not a problem. Face-to-face, what are people thinking?
Well, I think hybrids are hard to pull off. You know, I think we should decide one way or the other. Personally, it's hugely inconvenient.
Yeah.
I'm just on the opposite end of the world, but that shouldn't matter anyway, because these are networking meetings and I can make a greater effort. But what would help is just instead of an 8:30 start, which means that, you know, you're driving during rush hour traffic. You know, and it shouldn't be about me anyway, so disregard what I just said. So.
No, but Christine, I think that's a good point though,
Yeah.
because it's not just you. I mean,
No, it's
I
not.
personally live in Wyoming. Obviously, I drive to Lino Lakes, which is a 20-minute drive, which isn't a big deal. But again, I have
If you're coming to White Bear or wherever we're
and
gonna.
childcare, and so there's other people that I think are in a similar boat as far as that. We all just have different ways of going about it. However, do I still think in person things are great? Yes. I mean, would it be nice to actually stand next to somebody again? Yes. But how do we do that? And have we all found that this is more convenient? Because I can actually guarantee to get to this meeting and then get to another meeting, which makes it easier and me more willing and wanting to come to the networking and stuff like that. So that's where it's that catch-22.
See, I'm there too. Because we're all so darn busy, we're so compressed that taking a substantial amount of time to drive to and from is hard.
Yep.
So-
I see our public health person's got her hand.
Oh, that was not even going to factor into my statement.
All right.
It probably should now. So last time I checked, which was last week, cases are still rising. It is also killing as many older people as it was when we just had Delta.
Yes.
So that's the thing. But my perspective is, if we have someone who's willing to be in person and willing to do this as a hybrid, there's no reason why we can't do both and see how it goes. We don't have to commit to it, to doing it for the rest of our lives. But you could send out a note and say, hey, we're going to do a hybrid unless somebody objects, right?
I
You don't
like
get
the idea of
responses from
trying.
people.
Julia, you're right in board with what we should be doing. We should be trying something. We shouldn't be either oring it. You know what I mean? Like, I really truly feel like, because we may lose half the people and then we're like, uh-oh, we won't even know, did more people prefer virtual? Like, it's going to be an odd thing if we don't. So I know, go ahead, Julia. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
That's okay.
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
I think based on another meeting that I go to that does it hybrid, it takes, some technological knowledge. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if we have someone, if Kate can, I don't know, can help us do that, I think it'd be worth a shot. My networking meeting is not going back in person. We might meet once a year or twice a year to have coffee together, but at this point, there's more people there.
Folks who haven't spoken up yet.
I guess
No,
I
was
would
gonna-
kind of,
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
I guess I would kind of echo what Julia's doing with her other meeting. Like, maybe if we can advertise 1 or 2 of our meetings every year so everybody knows which ones will be in person. I know that Scott had mentioned there are a couple people who have said that they just won't participate in virtual meetings. So if there's a way to kind of keep those people in the fold, and I think the in-person meetings might kind of energize people to come to the virtual meetings too. But if there's something people can look towards, we have like a spring and a fall meeting that are in person and everybody knows that, and the other ones are all virtual or whatever, so that there's something for everyone at some point.
I think that's a great idea, especially doing the fall and the spring. I think that's a great idea.
To echo kind of what you guys are saying.
Saying how it's not always everything, it might be beneficial to do it during our lunch and learn hour. So, you're not having to worry about rush hour at 8 something. Maybe you can make a lunch event work more feasibly with your schedule. I'm not saying that's possible, but if we had a spring summer where we had an event that's in person, where it's over a midday time frame as opposed to early in the morning where you're fighting traffic, you have a better chance of attending. That might be a way to go as well, but no guarantees. It's just a thought.
It's kind of funny because prior to COVID, everything that we had live, we've always, as long as I've been around, 5 years worth of class, we've had our networking meetings from 8:30 to 10. Some of our last ones, we had over 30 people that were attending, which was really incredible. But I understand, times have changed. We also talked about at the last one that just because now we say that we may wish to do a live or some version of a networking meeting live in Zoom in September, we're still going to wait to see what happens with the health of the nation and the health of our state here. If things really change, we were not definitively saying anything. We just left it open as a good possibility.
And I would say that we did a really good job at the beginning of the year of planning out what our year was going to look like. That I don't think anyone is expecting us to jump through major hoops to make changes, considering we've already set what a good expectation. And maybe what a healthier option could be is talking about, we are working towards this for the 2023 year by putting certain things in place in 2022 and having these discussions. So that way it's not having to put any extra burden on folks unexpectedly. Because we have done a good job of planning ahead for all these programs.
And we don't have, I just want to speak because I was a person, speak to where we were, like when Scott mentioned, historically, we don't have access to the city hall piece anymore. I mean, so we'd sort of be starting from scratch. Those rooms are now used for offices so that they can spread out.
Oh, and White Bear.
Yeah. So they're not doing public meetings the same way there. They just aren't. So I know that would need to be factored in because we can't just go back to the way we were. So there'd be some groundwork and some person power needed to sort of move into what that would need to look like. So what Kate's suggesting feels really feasible for who we are as an organization right now. Like, even if we wanted to go in August, do we even have, like, you know what I mean? Like, can we organize it? Can we make that happen, sort of thing?
So I totally want to shift to that. In the our executive group, we spent a bunch of time talking about that transportation lunch and learn. And Scott said, well, I have a garage, I have some vehicles.
Cool.
People getting on and off of vehicles is a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I don't know, maybe touching something's worth 10,000. And then we talked about maybe getting a panel of 2 or 3 or 4 people feel a vehicle and then talk about ride shares and public transportation need, which are 2 hot topics in our areas, and have a monitor and maybe a laptop or 2 on a carol or on a rolling cart to kind of try and have the hybrid people be up on a big screen, and then, you know, a laptop is an individual who's speaking, kind of thing, which is some of the more effective hybrids that I'm looking at. So that's kind of, we've got not only the September 14th networking hypothetical that we brought up at the networking meeting, but hey, what about this August, this lunch and learn, this transportation theme? Scott, do you want to talk a little bit more about the vision that you'd had on it? Did I hit that pretty appropriately?
Yeah, I'd say so, John. I
Okay.
think what we were looking at is if we were to do, you know, a live or a hybrid event with transportation at New Tracks, I would be reaching out to bring in somebody from Metro Mobility or Transit Link to talk kind of generically about some transportation. We could then also have either the Uber or Lyft rep who is doing some different work share for seniors and adults with disabilities. Right now, there's a program in Dakota County, and I would maybe invite them to come and share as part of this. And then finally, it would be just, here's this new automated vehicle that New Tracks has that we could talk about. That automated vehicle that by that time will have been put into play for actually operating and working in and around our community here in a pilot program. So all of a sudden, by the time we get to the end of that, we've had 3 or 4 or 5 different transportation options that could be talked about. And it would be live and not just putting pictures on a screen, but we'd have, as John put it, somebody roaming around with either a camera or their laptop with the camera on that laptop pointing away from them and kind of acting as a camera.
I'm wondering if,
Go on,
sorry,
Katie.
I'm wondering if it would be worth ahead of the August meeting, putting out like a Google survey or something really simple, just asking if people would attend the virtual portion to see if it's worth doing all the technology setup. If people are saying, you know, I would like to be there, and then people who don't want to be there won't attend the virtual part, then you know it's not worth all the extra effort.
Ally?
right now, so I'm part of our Minnesota Park and Rec Association. Our programming section has been doing a hybrid for, well, we were, and then we weren't, and then we were again. I don't know where we're at the moment. Because I've only been
All
back for
virtual,
4
Ally.
days. Is it all virtual? Okay, so the plan before was to, what they had started to do was, so each city can like host the meeting. So we just, everybody who's interested in hosting a meeting kind of throws out, here's a natural date I could host and blah, blah, blah. So we're never at like the same facility, which is kind of nice because it shares that responsibility amongst other people. But the one thing that they were doing is that when we first went back to the hybrid is, if you are coming in person, please just kind of RSVP. So we had an idea of either A, how big of a room we needed, or B, whether anybody was even going to show up and everybody was going to go virtual. And that's an option too, that I think isn't such a bad idea. Obviously someone's got to get those emails back though, and kind of keep tabs of it. But that might be something we'd want to think about as we're just going back, is throwing that out there as like an RSVP for the virtual, so that we're kind of in the know. Just a thought.
So that we'll have to have a plan B if we find out nobody wants to come face to face. The plan, I mean, if nobody wants to come virtually, then it's a face-to-face meeting. That's easy. So yeah, plan A is face-to-face and face-to-face and hybrid. Plan B being just hybrid or just virtual. I am really on the fence. I think I could go either way. I think the programming is stronger in the garage. But.
And I think maybe it depends on the topics. I mean, for this one, I can totally see being in the garage and it meaning more hands-on and experience. You know, when you're talking about maybe the dementia, it doesn't necessarily have to be at a location, and maybe it's easier said than done through virtual. So I think that could be too, is it's going to depend on what the conversation is or the topic is.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong too.
So would anybody in a consensus world, we call it blocking, have a serious concern about trying to do a doodle poll of our membership on whether or not they would attend a hybrid August 17th lunch and learn, and going forward from there?
Are you asking if that's what we think we should do?
Does that sound reasonable to folks? Yeah, I'm not asking for an official, I'm just a poll.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe sooner than later, so you have enough time to plan for
Yep.
what version.
Yep. Do we have a class doodle?
I was just wondering, I was not involved with the Jot form setup, but can we just do a new form through Jot form maybe for it? That would collect all of those responses. I'm not very familiar with Jot form.
So I believe it was me and Kate and Scott, maybe Michelle, and then Kate and I said, oh, she looked up free forms online, and we did it in the next like 10 minutes or half hour after that. So we are not deeply Jot form, but no, Jot, if we have a Jot form account, yeah.
And I know that I've done SurveyMonkey, a free version in the past, that if I have the questions that we specifically want to ask, I can send out, and I'm more familiar with that than I am Jot form, is what I would say. And I've done that on behalf of class when we were trying to get information from folks during COVID of, are we doing the right thing? So if that's a way to do it, we can. I would just ask for someone to draft the questions, and then I can set it up on the back end.
Right.
I've also done a million Google form surveys, also free, and we have Google accounts. So many options.
All right, we have the technology. We can rebuild it.
And they
I
will
feel
come.
old. All right. So speaking of Jot form, I'm going to share. Oh, I can't share my screen because I'm not the host. Scott, can you
And John,
make me
before you skip to that, Lynn had
Yes.
mentioned wanting to talk about her lunch and learn too.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Katie. I just wanted to get, and I mean, we can wait till the next board meeting if we feel like the other things need to take precedence. I'm gonna start looking for content, and I want to make sure I'm on the right page of what there's several different ways we can go. And I'm trying to feel the audience of what we've been doing. I mean, I know we've only done one, but did we get a sense, maybe Julia, if you could weigh in, when you were doing your presentation, my hope would be to do two things with both educating the whole dementia-friendly scope of how it exists right now in our communities, like how we attach to it and how it's currently being integrated. But then also, since we have a captive audience, I am a dementia champion. I'm putting thought to, do we also then want to do like a mini crash course of here's how to be dementia friendly in simple ways from the professional perspective. There's an actual professional perspective for becoming dementia friendly in your organization. Now, I don't know how much, because I think, well, 40, is it 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
40-ish.
Okay.
45.
Yeah. So I really liked what Julia did, where she brought in some of the, the boots on the ground folks that are anything new. So I'm going to assess the different organizations that are attached to like the area on, Act on Alzheimer's. They're doing some of the dementia friendly Minnesota work, and then so I want to do some just baseline educating, but I also think experiential would be good so that we could actually have some morsels to all bring back into our day job. Like, here's 5 things that you could just be doing differently to become dementia friendly that don't take earth shattering. How other organizations may. So does that sound like what we want, or do we want something totally different? In person would change it, because I actually have access to a platform, which I originally planned COVID, would be more like how if Family Means does it's actually an experiential forum where you actually see what it's like to live with dementia. And then so I don't know if they're still doing it. Family Means was on my docket prior to COVID to be doing that. So I'd research that a little bit. So a few variables that I can wait, but I just want to get some feedback from the board here on your sense of what I just kind of threw out. What, as professionals right now, what sounds good, feels good, is in our capacity in a 45-minute window kind of thing.
So
I
just,
think,
no,
sorry.
go ahead, Katie.
I was just gonna say, I think having some practical tips sounds really great, so that
Okay.
people have something actionable that
Yep.
makes it kind of worth people showing up.
Yep. So, and then back, because I know a lot of our members, I was looking at our current membership, we don't, which is nice in my regard, because historically, if we had a bunch of different memory care places, and we don't have that right now. So it's a lot of other players. So I think there would be value in doing that. I wouldn't want to be preaching to the choir. So I love that to me, it felt like there was an opportunity. So that's where, okay, so that's good feedback. Thanks, Katie. So some practical, like organizational tips or kind of public facing ways to, as an organization, be dementia friendly.
I just want to pop in here as a former communication consultant, not
Yeah.
necessarily public health.
Okay.
People respond to stories far more than they do. I mean, I had a coworker who said she went to an event with 4 presenters and 3 of them had PowerPoints, and she only remembered the one that didn't have a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Told stories.
Okay.
So that's one thing. And the other thing is, I don't know if it's right here, but how do we get someone from the community who deals with dementia here to talk about that
You mean a person living with dementia
or a caregiver?
Yeah,
would
well,
you
I
like
have
to know?
access to all that. So I can do it however we want to do it. I will clearly, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because we run support group. Easily could put a face to the scene. If that would be, I like that you want to see that. I wouldn't want to assume you didn't, but it's nice for me to hear that, because I forget that that's also impactful, because that's my day job. So sort of an actual caregiver. Yep. Or maybe what we call them a dyad, to have like a dyad. There's a lot of people that are early in the journey that can put voice to how it feels to live in community or be connected to different organizations like ours, and what what we can do, really ask them like what we can be doing better or different, or how that might impact how we do our work, those kind of things. I mean,
I
I'm
think
just,
we'd have to be careful because we're not, because you all have said we're not gonna work
right.
directly with residents.
But what I'm
So-
saying is they could speak to us as professionals and
Oh,
say,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
here's ways, I mean, this is a weird audience, it's not weird, but it's an atypical audience, right? Where they're actually gonna, that's an impact that we get to hear
Right.
from a user or a system. There's that, so that's an idea too. Is that what you were thinking?
Julia,
Yep.
Julia,
I have a question. Because I mean, my day job involves going into facilities specifically memory care focused. So I live and breathe it and don't even think extras of it until family asks. And I'm like, yeah, I do a black background with white text. So that way it's easier for those with visual impairments to read. What are some things that would be helpful in an area that we're already senior service focused, but we're not necessarily the care providers? Because I sit here and I'm not offering a whole lot of my expertise or information just because I'm like, well, you guys already know, and I'm just doing my own thing over here. But clearly we have value to add to it. So it's more of what is it that you as a professional.
Well, I think we
Lot of
don't know
things
what
like
I think we don't know what we don't know. I mean, like, so I guess I would go right to I mean, you're asking Julia, but I guess I was thinking anybody, all of us should be thinking about, doesn't even matter what we're actually doing. If we can become more dementia friendly in doing it, then we're being more inclusive, I guess, right?
Well,
Like
I
that's,
gotta say, it's a great question. And your experience as a designer
Mhm.
is incredible. I took a walk around Sucker Lake this weekend,
Mm.
and the Ramsey County signs suck. They
Yeah.
are so bad. One of them's falling apart. You can't even read it. The other one
Right.
you can read sort of, but the print is this big and it's light
Mhm.
gray.
Yeah, nope.
Now, Ramsey County Parks and Rec is working on that, but I think that's one big piece of making a community age friendly. And I think people would need to hear it.
Yeah.
Some really basic, here's what you do in
Mhm.
terms of signage and communication.
Yeah. And also it's avoiding ageism. Like as just a personal
Yes.
example over the weekend, my grandparents are in their 80s, but they're still very capable. And my grandmother had a question about her phone. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to get her fingerprints set up so she doesn't have to constantly remember all the passwords. And both my father and my uncle were like, don't show her. It's just too much work. It's just, just have her give you the phone and just do it for her. I'm like, no, give her the ability. All I want to know is, can you tell me what the password is so I can show her how to do it? And then several days later, she's like, it's working great. I'm so glad. I wish I could do my fingerprint for everything. And I'm like, because I took the time. Like, I get it. It's a headache for you. It's extra work, but they spent how many hours taking extra time for you when you were a little snot-nosed kid to teach you. We need to try and take that stigma and that extra, because it is angst. I'm not saying it isn't, but it can be very hard to know just the simple little things
Mhm.
that make their life easier. And verbalizing that in a meaningful way, both for the parents and for the seniors, because it's challenging. But of course, I'm the daughter or the niece, so what do I know?
So along with that, I wanted to say, based on my experience presenting to providers about how to do community engagement, they're a
Mhm.
little bit like parents. They already know it all. And so it's very hard for them to hear it. So I really try to catch myself, don't always do it, to say, what are you all already doing? Or here's what we know you can do in addition to the things you're already doing. Because otherwise people are like, no, forget it. I know this already.
Yeah.
and it's. a
I
lot
don't
of-
know it, and your
Patience.
5 basics would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going
well,
in that direction. And I
People
also.
need those, but they
yeah.
want to pretend they know it all.
I know, right? So I would say that's the beauty of building a dementia friendly community. It is so simple, but yet we forget, like the whole slow down, wait for an answer. I mean, we need to all hear that. We need, even if we're in the business, we need to hear that. So I'll go basic, but it'll be practical. And then I'll also give enough opportunities for folks to understand if you're not a basic, if there's still value in coming, because I'm going to connect you to other things in the community that will meet you where you're at. Yeah.
I gotta go. Thank you. See you soon.
Yeah, I've got to get going here pretty quick
Yep,
too.
thank you.
so-
Thanks, everybody. That's
Lynn, are you-
helpful.
Lynn, are
Everybody
you
look
needing
at
more
that job
time?
form. I just put the job form link.
Okay, perfect. Do you
Click
want us
on
to fill it
that.
out?
Click on that. It'll show you the form. That's great. We can use it to get your events in our newsletter. And you can spread that out to anybody else who's in the network, who's a member, because this is our benefit of membership. All right,
Yeah, cool.
all right. Next board meeting is August 8th at 1:30 PM.
See everyone in
Lunch and learn on the
August.
17th.
before.
of August.
Mark your calendars.
Networking July 13th. With Christine Sundberg.
Yeah.
Oh, Christine, you're muted, but okay.
Sorry, I forgot that. I was coughing up a storm, so I muted.
no.
All right,
I just checked my calendar for the 19th. Could we make my start time at 9 o'clock? I've got an 8 o'clock, which should be done by 8:30, but I know it would be done by 9,
for July 13th.
July 13th,
Okay,
for the networking meeting for that presentation, right?
yeah.
Does that
Could we-
work?
Could we go through just a few like updates and stuff before we jump into her then? In the beginning of that?
Yeah,
You
I
could,
mean,
but that'd be a whole half hour's worth. Updates like we could start with some of the people who are there that get their 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
Can you make that
we're still wanting to make room for the breakout sessions.
Right.
And experience has shown when we start doing things at the end of the networking meeting, we start losing people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They have to leave for a 10 o'clock or whatever. So we've tried to do those kind of things at the beginning.
Can we do this? I think I should be done by 8:30. 8:45 at the latest. So I would think that shouldn't be a problem. So if I just jump on, we're good to go.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just to give you a heads up that there's an outside chance it could be late. And this is one I can't. If I
Yeah.
could change it, I would, but I can't.
all right,
Sounds good.
sounds good. All right,
Thanks, everyone.
Motion to end, right?
Yes.
all in favor, click leave.
Click leave.
All right, thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
All right, bye.